What are some company secrets you can now reveal since you don't work for the company anymore? It has been several years, but when I worked at certain satellite TV company, they had a value system for customers. You are valued at 1 to 5 stars, based on how much you spend, and how much they value you as a customer. If you are a higher star value, they will do basically anything to keep you. You will get a ton of services and equipment for free, and they will bend over backwards to keep you from cancelling. If you are a 1 or 2 star, they don't give a shit. Especially 1 stars, because it usually means that you are late all the time, or that you don't spend very much. If you call in asking for deals or credits, they won't give it to you. If you threaten to cancel, no one cares. Also, there are special phone lines for people they consider VIPs. They never have to wait on hold, and only special employees are allowed to take the phone calls. Cleaning up animals after an oil spill is feel-good propaganda to make the public think they are helping. 90% of those animals will be dead within a few days or weeks. They've ingested enough of the oil that they are moving corpses. And you missed a nice person with a bottle of Dawn dish soap, just don't know it yet. Real oil spill work is done by trained professional crews, not volunteers. If you ever tried to help, you were given busy work to keep you out of the way. I don't know if I'm more disappointed that they clean those animals up just for the PR, or that I should have realized that anything covered like that had swallowed more than enough to kill it. Former Geek Squad here. Most of the people that work there aren't really technical at all. We usually just walk it over to a bench, hook it up to a corporate VLAN and just run some software. If there are real issues, people remotely connect from India or somewhere else. We are basically just salesmen with a clip-on tie. We didn't meet the contractual obligations to entirely destroy the laptops Google sent us for decommissioning. We shredded the HDDs and sold the laptops for a profit. Couldn't do shit about the servers though, Google branding all over them. Our company discovered that our recycling partner was doing the same thing. We fired them immediately and started litigation. A high-class spa I worked at used Epsom salts and vegetable oil for their $65 salt scrubs. I worked at UPS ages ago. The word fragile on a box meant nothing to us, so make sure you pack your stuff properly. I used to work for a large smartphone company. During development, we used to go through phases: engineering verification testing stage, design verification test, production verification test, and finally mass production. Each stage was meant to have checkpoints in order to ensure that the final product was built with good quality, and any known bugs would be able to ironed out before the product launch. Any bug that was not resolved would potentially have the ability to delay the launch. Except that there is a thing called waivers. So the PM could request that certain bugs be granted a waiver, delaying the fix of the problem to later date. No big deal, every project has a few minor bugs, right? For each stage there would be hundreds of waivers. Some would be minor, to be fair, but sometimes they were definitely not minor. I will never, ever, buy an electronic device in the first 3 months of mass production. Wait for the second wave of production. The quality of the product increases tenfold. Viagogo are just corrupt, straight up. Not a little thing here and there, they are just a criminal company. They will take your money for tickets even if they have none of those tickets, assuming they will eventually have tickets to sell you. If they don't get them, you get the ticket money back. An example of this was when a guy in the UK bought tickets to the Super Bowl in 2013, booked his air travel, flew to the States, booked his accommodation, was staying in a hotel he paid for, and was calling us every 15 minutes to ask where his tickets were. We were told to lie to him and say someone will meet him at the stadium. We let him know 30 minutes before the game started that he wouldn't be receiving any tickets. Viagogo refund the ticket cost, but the travel, accommodation and time wasted? Nothing at all. And they never had the tickets. Same for festivals. I took loads of calls from people who were told to get to the middle of the wilderness in Eastern Europe for a dance festival, having booked time off work and prepared for a 5-day festival. When they got there, they were told there were never any tickets. Just go home, write off the time off, write off the ticket costs, Write off the transport, write of the preparation, and deal with feeling shitty for 5 days because they were ripped off by a company, except it isn't that simple, because now they are in the middle of a field in Eastern Europe for 5 days, the bus that took them there has gone, and they have no admittance to the festival, so essentially Viagogo were responsible for just dumping around 100 people in a field in Eastern Europe, with no provisions and no way of getting back. Far from discouraging the practice, they love scalpers and give them preferential treatment. Super sellers. They get discounts, skip phone queues, and get a higher price for tickets than honest customers with a ticket to sell. If an event is coming up soon, the seller can meet you at the venue to pass the ticket over. What this means is if you show up, and the seller isn't there for whatever reason, illness, decided to use ticket themselves, just can't be asked etc., you have paid and have no proof they did not meet you. Bye bye money. If you buy a ticket from Viagogo, I would honestly say you have a 40 to 45% chance of getting it. KFC has teenage kids cooking with industrial pressure cookers that could blow their ducking heads through the exhaust canopy if they ducked up. I literally have seen cooks spread their own hands up in flour and dunk them in 175 degrees Celsius oil as a lark. I have seen kids use boiling hot urn water to clean the caked on flour and oil off their work boot, and that water ran into their boot giving them serious burns. I have seen kids pick up huge pots of boiling oil and tip them to refill a cooker, as a shortcut to the slow melt method. Minimum age at the time was 14 and 9 months, though they'd hire them at 14 flat with parents' permission, and you could be supervisor at 17-18. Stuff may have changed in the last 10 years since, I dunno. Teenagers watching teenagers with that type of equipment was nerve-wracking. Not saying teenagers are stupid, just the ones I had to work with. Worked for a private school. Grades were definitely bought. We were discouraged to give anything lower than a B. Had one principal that told a teacher to take the final for a student that went on summer vacation early. She called it a shadow final and said nonchalantly that it's no big deal, just answer how you think the student would answer. This school is expensive, and these kids go on to fancy colleges because of these grades. My friend went to a fairly nice school, and one of her favorite professors was telling her about how he failed a student who showed up to like a quarter of the classes, and never did homework, but his family was rich and donated or something. So his parents emailed him asking if he could reconsider moving it up to a B, and he said no. Later on he checked, and the school had changed it to a B. Wash your fruits and vegetables very thoroughly, a lot of them will end up being scooped off a disgusting warehouse floor and put back in the package after falling out. Also, workers just pull molding fruits and veggies out of the bin. Your stuff was probably touching something rotting. I used to work at Whole Foods, in our bakery department. Almost nothing, aside from the bread, is made from scratch there. This shouldn't be too shocking, considering they're a multinational chain now, but really it'd be more correct to say that our cakes are assembled in-house. I used to work in skincare. None of the products cost more than $2 to manufacture, but would retail at anything from $20 to $150 per product. Always amazed me how much people would shell out for anything with volcanic clay or snake venom cream. I worked at a car dealership. The $1,200 car care system that we would discount to $900 was applied with about 15 squirts of a spray bottle. Many times I'd hang out with the detail guys so the customer wouldn't get suspicious at a quick turnaround. Worked in retail jewelry in Australia. This would apply pretty much everywhere. Most all items for sale, the exception would be promotional pieces, or special collections, has a minimum and a maximum price. Don't take for face value that the price is what you have to pay. Ask straight up, what is the minimum on this item? Say it like you know what you are talking about. Sometimes the minimum price can be hundreds lower than the displayed price. Michael Hill Jewelers will clean all jewelry for free. Try to avoid going to dental chains. Aspen Dental, etc. They push you to get procedures done you don't need, and your appointment times are usually as fast as the doctor can find the first thing that's wrong. Doctors are overworked, and this increases the chance they will mess up. If you can't pay, they help you finance, but you'll get it with a 20% plus interest rate when you miss your first payment. They also overwork and underpay staff, which leads to disgruntled staff who don't care. And like all public service positions, there's no backbone against shitty patients. You have to bend over backward and kiss their asses. The only way it works, and it does, is when you have caring, skilled staff across the board. This rarely happens due to high overturn. I had to get out when the new doctor at our office pulled too many teeth in a procedure and had to give a patient a full denture instead of a partial. He blamed the assistant, and she was fired. The lab was overwhelmed with extra work from his mistakes. I didn't feel the doctor cared about anything but money, and I couldn't morally do it. I couldn't say he was a good doctor, when deep down I knew it was a lie. Reasons I hate commercialized medicine. Walmart would make us work past our shift, and then force us to clock in late the next night to avoid OT. The managers got so paranoid about OT that they started accusing us of going over 40. I was docked 4 hours when I had no overtime, and had to use my PTO to get back to 40. Edit, for clarification on my state. This was in 2012, and I live in Oklahoma. The labor board is a ducking joke, and the keep you from going over your hours happened at 2 stores I worked at. Both stores also did shady shit like having maintenance work both cleaning and stocking. I had to stock the first half of the night, and clean 5 bathrooms the last half, and had to get them all cleaned before 7. I will never work for Walmart again, and I warn my friends not to work for them. I can assure you most things in Tim Hortons are not fresh. Unless you show up at rush hour, then you might get just brewed coffee. Apple. All techs and genius employees are fully aware of widespread issues well before they are officially released to the public. They are never discussed at the morning staff meetings with management present, but are always a source of discussion in the 3 to 3:30 tech staff meeting. For example, it got to a point where I would replace an iPhone 6 Plus for the display issue, and sometimes had to replace the replacement 2 to 3 times while the customer was waiting. It was embarrassing and frustrating that the official release from the company was that the issue was caused by customer misuse. We all knew the truth, and the techs with any sort of conscience would bend over backwards to do what we could to right the wrongs. That is one of several manufacturing issues masked as user error or misuse that we tried to work around. Okay, I used to work for a major card service company, and before the law changed, if you bought a gift card to say a Red Lobster, and didn't use it for like say a year, it was a distinct possibility that the entire value of that card would be gone, due to monthly service charges. So picture me, the guy trying to explain to the guy how his $50 gift card was worth nothing, and you can imagine how that goes. Weirdly enough, I ended up loving that job the most, due to other types of accounts I used to handle. That was one of the worst parts of my job honestly. I worked for a cold storage company that held products for Good Humor. The inside of the freezer was minus 20 degrees. One day, a friend of mine caught some boxes on the racking, causing popsicles to go everywhere. When he stepped off his lift to look up into the racking to evaluate the situation, he stepped on a popsicle causing his feet to fly up in the air and busted his head on the ground. He lasted a few days in ICU, and eventually passed. Instead of this being a freak accident and giving us time to deal with it, we were all brought into the freezer to look at the frozen puddle of blood to show us what could happen if we aren't careful. I don't know the legality of this, but it always seemed weird. But we would get bags of another company's product, animal premix, and manually transfer that product into a bag of our own. We would give these products lot codes of our own and sell them to customers. Used to work for a coffee shop whose claim to fame was that all food items were made from scratch in-house. All of their pastries were made using Pillsbury though, and every other kind of dessert was bought from a grocery store. Every single automotive parts company will let you return anything if you simply call the district manager. I have yet to see anything not taken care of when it reaches their level. You think your battery is under warranty, but it's not showing up? Call the DM. They'll tell the store to take care of it. 100%, every time. The Canadian tire import Coquitlam Canada blocks their emergency exits with metal bars to prevent theft, and, consequently, prevents a quick exit in case the overly stuffed and flammables filled building catches fire. Someone use this knowledge to make some money. I'll take 5%. Regal Cinemas movie theaters has something called a per cap. Per caps are calculated by dividing the attendance by how much concession sales there are. For example, a low per cap is anything under $3, but a higher one is over $4. If there is a 15-cent variance from one day to the next, you had to fill out a report stating why. You couldn't state things like the obvious. For example, if I manage a theater in Minneapolis, and per cap sucked this past Sunday because everyone was at the Super Bowl, I could not use sports as an excuse, even though it was so obvious. Instead I would have to say something like, large groups in attendance who didn't purchase concessions. I'll also shatter another myth that nobody cares if you sneak drinks or bootleg candy in. Just make sure you throw it away after the show, so as to make cleaning the auditorium easier. It is marginally true that the theater makes most money from the concession stand, as we only profit about 15 cents from a movie ticket. The rest goes to Hollywood. However, in the summer, running all that AC, neon, ice machines, etc., it wasn't uncommon for the electric bill to hit $30,000 or so. Plus rent to the mall was another $60,000 a month. So yeah, no,